I do have, okay, I say, okay. I do have the feeling that we might not end up this thing tonight. Because first of all, it's actually quite good. The time is limited because I was skiing this morning, so I didn't practice and I have tons of things.
Yes.
Anyway, shoot.
So please tell me first, how was your tour in China? Because you toured with Lan Shu.
Oh, he's such a devoted, humble, and caring and good man. And that goes through his conducting. You know how and I was so happy because, as you know, I like Beethoven rather fast and driven, and he had exactly the same idea concept. We get along so well, and of course the concert hall are just a part of one which was actually not really good, which is not even a proper concert hall as such, but a multifunctional location. And the reason is that it's not a ideal tour, ideal time for touring in China, because you have a lot of ersatz, I mean, actually all over the world, orchestras playing pseudo classic or doing some Strauss waltz or something, you know. And this was the Philharmonia Orchestra as such, and not Paris Orchestra or Vienna, you know, pseudo philharmonic, this kind of thing. Right. And so the concert hall was in I think that was in Shanghai. That was the only one, but we were very proud to be one of the first professional orchestra to play in the new concert hall in Beijing, the Beijing Artistic Center, and this is mind-boggling beautiful. Of course, NCPA in Beijing is already very nice, but and Shenzhen, I mean, yeah, music is flourishing in a wonderful way. And of course, most of the time, the location of the concert hall is also like a cultural location with museum, library. I mean, that's and etc. It's I had people coming to me asking me to sign a Stockhausen recording I did in the 90s. And when I said, well, is that, oh, we love Stockhausen music. We love Stockhausen music. And I had other people coming with my very first Haydn recording, which I made in a rather obscure and ultra small French company in 91. And they said, how did you get that? Oh, Mr. Bavozuet, we have all your recording. We make a call.
Super fans.
Mind-boggling the level of dedication some of the music people have.
Yes. Really. So how do you physically pace yourself through a tour when you have so many concerts to play in a short period of time? Is it demanding in that way for you?
Ted, this is more like holiday. The thing was that it was concerto number 10 and 11 I played since September. And actually now I'm really putting my fingers in Beethoven 3, which I play in 10 days. So the touring, actually, when you play the same program several times, it's luxury. It's absolutely luxury for me. And well, they are demanding concertos, of course. But also what I like is the fact that you can improve from concerts to concerts, or experiment, or change, or go further. You know, so it's I wish my life would be constant touring, right? And of course not with all the time the same concerto, but no, that was really and of course the challenge is when you play. Ashkenazi told me that he never played any encore with orchestra, never, because he thought it was not fair for the musicians of the orchestra. Well, these days, if you don't play an encore, it may even look arrogant from the point of view of the soloist, you know. But you can do one, you know. But if you do 4 or 5 with the orchestra waiting that's not fair. So I made a point in playing every time a different encore, at least for them to enjoy the little extra time they had to stay on stage.
Fantastic. So I wanted to take you back to your student years to ask some questions about when you were developing, when you were younger. So you studied in Metz and also in the Conservatoire of Paris. And are there any moments that sort of stand out in your memory of sort of moments of musical insight where you feel that really guided you on the journey that you're on now?
Very much so. I was 13 and I found the score of The Rite of Spring. I was raised by my mother, and my mother was a college teacher. You know, she had students from 11 years old to 18 years old, but once a week, you know, and she was extremely active and had some chorale at the peak of her career of 80 musicians, 80 singers that she was handling herself. But the score was there, and I remember being fascinated by this, you know, rhythm, and so I wanted to check the score, and so that was a turning point. I must have been 13. Also, the luxury of living in a rather medium-sized city is, of course, all transport and facilities is much easier, and so in the Metz Conservatoire, I studied also oboe for 2 years. Percussion for 10 years, and a crucial study which I did in electronic music. Now we go back to that's in the middle 70s. So of course everything which is digital didn't exist at that time, and all the electronic sound you had to create them from scratch, and not just pressing a button, and if you don't like this sound, you press the next button. You had to control and to be aware of all 5 parameters of the sound and adjust them in order to achieve the sound you wanted. And this was revelatory for me because it made me live and understand the sound as a physical aspect, and to control it, and to be able to make even, you know, music with it, but by controlling all parameters. And in my ideal school of music, I would definitely have, at least for a semester, basic knowledge of this aspect of music. Not so much for the composition point of view, it could be, of course, but just for, I think any musician should pay more attention to separate the parameters of sound,
right,
which are volume, pitch, timbre, duration, and spatialization, where the sound comes from. So amplifier, oscillator, filter, the envelope, which is how the sound evolves in time, and of course spatialization, which, to go back to Stockhausen that we mentioned earlier, that was his big thing, because actually he was able to even to create, I think, in the Osaka International Exposition, Universal Exposition, to put the public in the center of a sphere completely filled with speakers all around, and make the sound going from above to all so. But okay, so and this was and actually I learned that with assistant of Messias Magwashka, the assistant of Stockhausen, who actually built this spheric musical tool that I just prefer to. Yeah.
Oh, and I'm sure that.
And so this was revelatory. And of course, there is some concerts. I remember hearing the percussion of Strasbourg. The first time I heard a group of percussion, this super famous late 70s, one of the first in Europe of a group of percussions, of 4 percussions, and and some memorable. Oh, of course, I remember Leonard Bernstein in the Musikverein. I was 8, and he was. I mean, Mahler 8, and I was probably 8, 9, 10, and he was, jumping, and I never thought it was possible to give so much energy. I remember the first time I heard Sviatoslav Richter in concert. I still can recall any moment of the beginning of all sonatas he played, and yeah, I think everybody has its kind of impact. And one of the questions you were asking is how you can define where the artist you are now. Well, it's very true. It's, let's say, 80% work, hard work, and 20% luck. And the luck is not, I'm not speaking of the career now, because that's another aspect, but the luck of meeting wonderful musicians that you admire and where you can take from. And in that aspect, I really have to name first Pierre Sancan. When you have the chance to have as piano teacher a Grand Prix de Rome of composition, a real composer who, by unknown reason to me still and up to now, gave up conducting, gave up composing, gave up playing himself in concerts, and dedicate his life to teaching. But of course, his knowledge of music was so vast, and so that was each lesson was like a revelatory to me, even if sometimes he was rather hard and not pleased with my playing. But that's, and of course after that you have a lot of marvelous meeting. You pointed Horowitz, Boulez, Stockhausen, Luciano Berio, Maurice Oana, in the young generation, Mantovani, Jörg Winman. I'm sure I forgot some of composers, and suddenly makes you aware of what is important for them in music. And that's actually the exact definition of style. So what is important for a composer? Is it the atmosphere? Is it the timing accuracy? Is it the intensity, like for Kurtag, for example? Is it the dynamic? Is it the shape? Or is it a little bit what you put inside the music? And which is the definition of style for me. Yeah.
So interestingly, when you mention those artists, how did you actually learn from them? Because even in this case right now, I'm asking you questions, but do you think that's really the best way to learn? Did you ask Boulez questions? Did you ask Horowitz questions? Or was it just being around them and sort of watching how they did things, how they approached music? How did you really learn the wisdom?
Both. A name I didn't mention until now is, of course, Zoltán Kocsis. When you saw Zoltán Kocsis performing from close, performing even with him, the intensity, sometimes even unbearable concentration and intensity he had in the music, or when you watched him during musical miracles, like playing the entire Bluebird Castle at 4 o'clock in the morning, after a dinner and drinking, or playing at request Brahms' Second Symphony in the intermission of our own concert. And you see that, and of course there is a shock, because you say to yourself, if that is called a musician, then who are you? A key pusher, a key pressure, a key pusher, So and so you also understand that how to approach the best possible way. But look at the wonderful advice Schumann gave to musicians. Or, you know, if you sit at the piano and you say, okay, I'm going to just spend now the next 5 hours, okay. But if you, and just learn as I can with my tools, right? Okay. But if you think what a master will do in these 5 hours, and if you had the luck, like I had, to see how the brain of a musician, like, for example, Zoltán Kocsis works, the musical brain, or Pierre Boulez, how this superior mind worked. And you can also yourself sit at the piano and said, okay, let's assume it was Kocsis, what he will do. And so in that case, without being schizophrenic, but you separate yourself drastically into a teacher and a student, or a master and an apprenti. And by doing that regularly, no doubt that both this aspect of your brain improve, because the master part is even more aware of how you could make progress and what to do to make progress. And the other part is also even eager to go further and pay even more attention to what the first part said. What is actually the difference of a master and an apprentice? It's, of course, the knowledge, but how do you how do you get the knowledge? It is more a quality of practicing that makes the difference. Therefore, one of my biggest motto is never forget that the quality of your playing depends directly from the quality of your practice. Super gifted people need very little amount of practice, and even some of them don't even know how to practice, because it seems to be everything is easy for them. Fantastic, good. They might wake up one day and say, by the way, what I'm doing, and then suddenly they switch from being super gifted child to adult. And this crisis might be super painful. I mean, we have so many examples of ultra gifted young child who actually never made something important when they became adults, because they were clueless how to improve. I certainly never belonged. I mean, I'm not in this category because I was never so-called super gifted. Everything, I mean, probably a little bit, but I really have the feeling that I'm the musician I am because I worked hard, you know, and somehow I had the possibility to make a rather good diagnostic of what was wrong in my playing. And apart of one time that it's one of your questions actually about the challenge, if I had any challenge, but most of the time when I worked, every time I worked, I had better results. And the reason is because I think I work cleverly. Now, of course, the ideal we want, and I'm sure a musician like Mozart did, although he worked very, very, very hard, is a super minimum amount of practicing for a maximum of results. This is a question of focus and concentration and not wasting time. On the other hand, you have a musician like Liszt, who wrote, I don't know how many volumes, 3 full volumes of exercise, which are incredibly time consuming. But you don't run the marathon by just thinking of running the marathon. You need to spend hours and hours and hours to train your body muscularly. So Liszt introduced a really very clear muscular aspect of our how to play the piano. That's why you can even split the piano literature into two, you know, the one before Liszt and the one after, on the pure muscular point of view. I'm exaggerating, but the music written before Liszt, of course, I'm exaggerating, but you can almost learn it by looking at the score. But you cannot play Feu Follet by looking at the score. You see what I mean?
Very interesting. Interestingly, what you were saying earlier about how you experienced the difference in intensity, you described it between yourself and Kocsis when you were watching him play or watching him think. I see the same thing when you were in a masterclass with a student. I see this same kind of separation, but that you bring the intensity to them, and this brings it out of the student as well. It's like you see this void in between, and it's like where there isn't a full awareness from the student, and you become aware of it when you yourself show them. And I think it's interesting, that parallel, because what Kocsis did for you, you have managed to give to others. Perhaps Kocsis
Ted, nothing can please me more. Nothing, that's what you say. Absolutely nothing can please me more. What you gain yourself from different master or people you admire. Let's put, what is a master? Is just somebody you admire, you know, and where you feel, aha, this person knows more, and I'm eager to learn from this person. So you observe, and if this person is in your environment, you can ask direct question, and hopefully you get answers. If this person express herself or himself in the best way, or in a way that you understand, then you get fed, and then this is a long-term process, of course, nourishing yourself, and you search and you search and you search and you gain and you gain and you enrich yourself. And at one point, for many years, teaching was not even an option in my life. I was just not ready, because I was digesting, and said, what can I teach? I'm still a student. By the way, I do feel still a student today. That's the beauty of our art, you know, that we are still constantly learning, constantly. As Sankan put it in a very nice way, you know, the path to beauty is endless. Is endless, and so our world, musical world, is so vast, so incredibly vast, that you know, a lifetime is not enough. But what is really wonderful is, for me, is what you just said, when you have the feeling that, okay, now it's time for me to give it, not back, because I cannot give back, but it's in a way it's also transformed through my own personal experience as a man and as a musician. And so that's how the music interpretation and the how we read and feel this text written 200 years ago resonate lively to our soul and to our ears, because we certainly don't play the same as 200 years ago. We don't play the same as 50 years ago. We don't even play the same as 20 years ago music.
Well, what I really wanted to ask you in regard to that was, when you're in the masterclass, it seems that you do really understand how to explain this piece. You say when you perform a piece, you explain a piece, but you also said that when you play, you don't know if the composer would come and tap on your shoulder and say, you know my piece. I remember you said that as well. You don't know if you are correct, if you have the truth, but it seems to me that you do. When you're in a situation in the masterclass, it really seems that you do know. So
it's a kind of conviction. Yes, it's I love this I think very Asian way of thinking, that the master is constantly doubting of himself. You know, the one who knows the truth is actually inside constantly doubting. But what he says to the world is considered the truth. Yeah. So it's a personal search. You need some insight of conviction. You can transmit also your doubts to the younger generation, and I think it's also healthy. But the conviction you have, you can only dream of it. And as you said, my biggest goal as an interpret is, if the composer is in the hall, I say, you understood my piece. So very good. Or they can even say sometimes, oh, I never thought it could be this, but you know, it's better than when Ravel came to Toscanini and said, so don't play my bolero, it's too fast. You know, don't play it. But with a composer like Courtag, it's very, very, very difficult to understand and grab what is actually his intention. And sometimes what are his intentions are totally beyond your musical world, your musical landscape. And Courtag has apparently very big difficulties he had for me, and I'm sure that, but I think he's a very good example of a composer who wants to expand who wants? No, he doesn't want, but he needs, in order for you to understand what he means, you need to expand your musical vocabulary and your landscape by suddenly saying, oh, geez, there is a Mont Blanc. I always thought the Mont Blanc was the highest peak in the world. I say that because I'm in Switzerland. And suddenly you see the Everest, which is twice the size. I said, I never thought it could be possible that there is such another thing.
So do you think that your conviction is helped by having such a vast repertoire that you have?
No, I mean, the vast repertoire is interesting, but what I can see sometimes when I hear or when I work with a musician is sometimes the limit of this landscape. You see, and something I say, actually, yes, they are just in the puszta, you know, in the plain, in the Hungarian plain, and there is no peaks. And so I'm trying to add some relief at the au propre comme au figuré. I mean, also like metaphorically and also clearly, you know, to put some landscape on there. The vast repertoire. Yes, but you know, there are still music that I still don't touch because I cannot. In the case of Schubert, I have difficulty to read the text of Schubert. In the case of Chopin, the same. And what I mean by reading is yes. So I'm not sure of the composer's intention from what I'm reading. And even more confused when I hear specialized musician on that repertoire compared to what I read. And I sometimes, in the case of Chopin, this is probably the best example. You know, what I hear sounds beautiful. What I read is completely different. So I'm confused.
You said in the masterclass, you said it always sounds good. That's the danger. It sounds beautiful every way.
Yes. Chopin is very big, very problematic composer because, yeah, I think exactly. Yeah, you could say a little bit that from Bach also. You know, you play the notes and it sounds beautiful in any tempos, for any instruments, at any dynamics.
So, is there any composers you feel drawn to that you would like to approach now or in the future?
Yes, actually, yes, absolutely. The second Viennese school, Berg, Schoenberg, especially. I always had a soft spot for Scriabin, but never had the chance and the time to dig into more. And I like also music of Prokofiev. The little piece I think I little underestimated. And actually from Bartok, I didn't play so much of his solo pieces about the famous, 4, 5, 6 pieces, but also the Bagatelle or the Elegy or the Esquisse, or that's this repertoire I would be interested to dig into. Yeah. Oh, and of course I forgot to mention my actually recording project, which I did a recording in 2020 about Beethoven connection. Some composers around living at the time of Beethoven, but not. It was a super interesting experience for me, but not so famous as Beethoven. And the question is, so in that case, why? Why? I mean, of course, Hummel, Duschek, Clementi, we know, but why a Wölfel, for example, disappeared also, and how what was the basic language of that period? Let's say roughly, Vienna into 1800, so something from 1790 to 1810, roughly, these 20 years. And to see what how Beethoven is radically different, in almost in opposition to this common language, and at the same time, what did he use and why did he use that aspect and not this aspect? So we are going to do probably two of the album of Beethoven connection. Yeah.
So if I was
actually, it is the first Viennese school and the second Viennese school.
Yeah. So if I was to ask you one last question about if you had a sort of open message that you would give to students that are like a key message for their development as a musician, what would it be?
Work on your curiosity. And I said work because sometimes there is area where or that you might not feel close to, and force yourself to be in contact with music that at first might not appeal to you. And only when you have digged, you can say, okay, this is not mine. In my case, it's techno. Sorry to say. I can understand acid rock much better than techno is. I cannot get it, and I learned a lot of things. But I mean, I heard a lot, but techno. But it's not. But look, no, more seriously, because by being curious and listening to interpretation of the past also, and digging into, you obviously nourish yourself from new experiences. And I will add something which I never thought I would say, but now I think I surprise myself saying it more and more. We might think, okay, anyway, who I am in the world of music, if I disappear tomorrow, what will change? Okay, you might think that way, saying that music doesn't need you. But actually, if you think for 1 second the opposite, that all musicians think that way, music is dying. Music dies completely. If music is not played and lived with the young generation, it dies. So actually, especially now, where the general interest from classical music is shrinking due to the lack of education. So now you have less and less music teachers in college and schools, and so okay, I had some just coming back from China, where I had the opposite example of very young people and young kids interesting, but that's another example, even a contradictory example. But think yourself, if you really love music, as if you are on a mission to save music, to save it, and not to save it, but to save the world would be like the adventures of music, but to that actually your part, even as small as it is, plays a major role in helping the others to be in contact with the music through you.
Wow. Thank you so much. Really, thank you for everything that you've given us as well.
I may even think of something else to tell you during the week. Sorry, when do you have to give back this thing?
I have time. I have months.
Okay, so we might even do it even for a shorter time. You have to go to here, Grosvenor now, right?
Yes,
Grosvenor.
I have to go.
Okay. So I leave you. Thank you, Ted.
Thank you so much.
And if I think of something else, then we do another meeting. Okay?
Thank you so much for your generosity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. All the best to you.
Bye-bye.